Okay, so here we are, continuing on in my class. I'm looking for the evidence, the indicators of physical abuse or behaviors in the individual, the neglect, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse, what evidence is. So, here's the evidence that you're going to look in some of the cases. As far as I'm the teacher, Lovey. I'm talking right now to the students. That's my granddaughter asking me if I'm the teacher, and I said, yes, I'm the teacher. She's in the background here. You want to say hi, Justice? Here, wave, baby. There you go. Oh, there she is. Wave. That's Justice. That's my 3-year-old. All right, there we go. Okay, so neglect is you're failing to provide the basic medical needs. So, kid gets a broken arm or open cut, needs to seek medical attention, and you don't give it to them, you can be arrested for neglect. Provide nutritional needs, feed them, clothe them, bathe them, make sure they have all the stuff that you need. Fail to send the kid to school. To ensure that they're in school all the time, allow them to be truant, that you could end up being held responsible as a parent or guardian. Physical abuse, obviously, the telltale signs like the photograph that I showed you earlier. The child's apparent fear against family member or child care workers. They used to love to go to school. They hate going to school now all of a sudden. Or else, maybe you drop them off at the daycare and they're so reluctant. They don't want to go to daycare center or anything like that. There was a case at the daycare center, little kids under the age of 5. All the parents said all of a sudden the kids didn't want to go to the daycare anymore, and this one member would come over to the daycare. It was a relative, and force the kids to fight and videotape them, and they would have to keep fighting and fighting and fighting until he told them to stop, or else they would get punished by him for not fighting. So all of a sudden parents noticed that the kids were very violent, striking out, being mean at home when they weren't before. Sexual abuse, the unexplained pain, swelling, redness, and bleeding in the mouth, lips, and genital areas that wasn't there before. Demonstration of sexual information above and beyond other kids, especially when other kids start mimicking sexual behaviors that they see in their families. Playing sexual games on their own with other children, or you see it with toys, they get their dolls and do the same thing. Emotional abuse, extreme behaviors, transition from extreme anger. Remember I was telling you earlier about the tension that people exhibiting the physical abuse, having a lot of tantrums where they weren't before. A lot of things are, they were noticing like 70% of the kids that go to juvenile hall, especially the girls, were exhibiting outward signs that landed them into juvenile hall. And they ended up finding out that the underlying issue was the kids had been abused earlier in their life. Okay, on this next slide here, this year there are several different syndromes. I want you to look up what they mean to me. A couple sentences, part of the assignment. What you find out that the Munchkin, bless you, okay? You okay, baby? Okay. That the Munchkin's diseases and syndromes, I should say, not a disease, syndromes, what they mean and what they represent. And if you can find just a little blurb, just write about what the Munchkin syndrome was. I want you to tell me your feelings about this little boy here after you watch this video and what he had to endure till I think he was 8 or 9 years old by his own parent. Okay, his own parent doing this to him. And again, like I said, little kids, they don't know what's in the world. They're a blank slate. So if they're born and raised in an area of abuse, or they're born and raised in an area of sexual battery that takes place, right? They're groomed for this because they don't know anything. They don't know it's bad. They think it's normal. Unfortunately, there was a case where a 5th grade little boy, that's the age they start teaching them about the birds and the bees, how reproduction occurs, intercourse, things like that, where children can become pregnant because at that time, a lot of girls started getting their menstrual cycle, and they could reach a point in which they could become pregnant. And they, explained to them how the reproduction of men and women go. Well, this one little boy raised his hand, again, not knowing, right, being a single child in the house, a little boy, and he raised his hand and asked if it's possible that he could get pregnant. And, of course, this alerted the teacher. It wasn't like everybody busted up laughing again because they don't know, because unfortunately his dad was having sexual intercourse with him, and he feared for, him himself being pregnant, which is really sad when you think about it. And I couldn't even imagine the heartbreak the teacher felt with something like that when, he raised his hand because he was afraid that he was going to get pregnant because his dad was having sexual intercourse with him, and it was a very sad situation. Okay. I swear, when you guys get into this field of work, you can't make some of this stuff up. What you're going to see and hear and be involved with, I know there's a couple of my students are explorers. Good for you guys that are getting into the education early in your lifetime, because you can't make some of this stuff up. So I want you to look at the 60-minute film. It's called Pervert Park, where everybody who lives in this facility have been convicted of sexual involvement with kids under the age of 14. Okay, like this slide, there's no specific demographic for child predator. It's across the board. You can't say there's more white males as opposed to Chinese males, as opposed to Indian males, as opposed to black males, as opposed to name the male. Okay, it goes across the board where the sexual predators are involved in. Rarely is any force used because it's called grooming. And it starts off so innocent, rubbing somebody on the back. Hey, buddy, what's going on? Like, who hasn't done that to a kid, right? But your mindset isn't, let me start rubbing, and then slowly, okay, I'm going to go down the mid-back. It's over a period of time that this takes place, okay? It involves activity, easy access to children. Feel free to Google if you want coaches, right? Coaches. There's tons of children. Name the coach across the board. Football, soccer, baseball, badminton, volleyball, you name it, swimming, whatever. Some coach has access to children and takes advantage of the position, right? Situational and boy, I get stuck on this word. Preferential. There's 10 words I get stuck on. Phenomenon's another one. Okay, but anyway, pedophile is a sex offense in all states. Okay, can't have it. People are trying to pass it, but it can't happen. All right, juvenile sex offenders. All right, target victim usually those under 12 years old. So that means that's when a juvenile, somebody 18, is also a sexual predator against other kids under 18, right? So I want you to watch this video and tell me your opinion, how you feel about watching this video, and what you believe is right or wrong within this video as opposed to the other two ones. Because the other two, so there's lots of assignments in this here. So tell me about that here. Exploitations, you see a lot of stuff on the internet, so you kind of have to watch to see what your kids are watching on the internet, because they have been exposed to everything. Let's see, sexual exploitation. The following website's very sickening, but it goes on in the United States, an underground sex ring. So feel free to look at this website here. You can plug it in, and only if you want to see the perversion that goes on that's out there in the underground world. There's no notes or anything you need to take on it, nothing at all, because some people don't want to look at it. Okay, this here means victimology. Who are the kids? They have a bond. The kids have the bond with the suspect. They're very trusting, because kids are very young, very trusting to aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, the babysitter, right? Because it starts off very innocent, and the pedophiles become more and more involved with the children. Okay? Let's see here. All right, sex offenders being caught. Kind of interesting here. This one guy says that it begins in the womb. The mindset of becoming a sexual predator begins in the womb. It's kind of interesting because at what point does the brain turn on and say that it's okay to molest a child, right? At what point it's like, I know when I'm talking about all this stuff in class, 99.999% of the reaction I get when I talk about the violence towards children and the sexual perversion that goes on. I mean, everybody's like sickened by it, like gross, like how can somebody do that to a child? And then it's like, at what point does that bring? Oh yeah, look at that. Right, let's show it again, baby. What is it? Oh, you got a bunch of stickers. Very cool. Okay. All right. So they go on to, open this up to get into a mindset. Now, a lot of these suspects were once victims when they were young, and it just goes on in a cycle. So it's kind of interesting. Tell me your thoughts again in a couple sentences on begins in the womb and then the actual sexual predator and what you think about that. Okay. Runaway or abducted. Runaway or abducted. A lot of kids around, 11, 12, 13, they've been in homes that they've been abused a lot, so they run away. And then what's really horrible is they get into the sex trafficking rings, and then they become used in that aspect. And they can be often kidnapped. But you wouldn't know because they run away from home so many times, and then usually they end up coming back, running away, and at one point a lot of them get kidnapped and are taken into sex rings. All right, there's some information here about exploited children and the statistics that there's apparently 16.9 million reports, mostly related to child abuse, sexual child abuse, sextortion. Feel free to look that up if you don't know what it is. Child sex trafficking, molestation, and all of this sort. Okay. Again, for the kids that are abducted, they have the Amber Alert plan. That's where California Highway Patrol is notified whether there's a missing child, and then they will put an Amber Alert on. Maybe some people are already aware of it. Sometimes your phone beeps, right? Amber Alert, look for this little girl, boy, whoever abducted by the suspect, and you see them going down the freeway too to try to recover these little lost kids. Child is a witness in court. You provide testimony. It's very hard for a child, obviously, to go to court to see the defendant there in court in order to testify against them. So a lot of things are done via remotely here. The questions will be asked by the judge. You'll see the judge there, and then they'll just answer the question from another room. Child abusers, preventing child abuse, again, very hard. It's against kids, usually somebody they know, right? That the child abuse takes place against somebody that's that they know, and they threaten to, say, we're going to tell your mom or dad or whatever you tell on us doing these bad things. So, in this video here, I want you to tell me your opinion of your thoughts, the suspect who should be charged in this crime. I want you to tell me what you think, what his motive was. Sorry, it's been a long day. What his motive was and to committing these type of crimes. Okay, so couple 2 sentences. There's a fly. Okay, I'll get it. All right, so here's a summary that wraps it up for all of us. All right, talk to you later. Okay. All right, talk to you guys later. See you in the next module. Bye-bye.